It's 1989. The rain is pounding. Your footsteps are sloshing through the mud. You're out in the midst of it, the freezing cold, the howling wind, trudging through the rain as the thunder roars overhead. You're following her footsteps, cemented in the mud below. You have one goal in mind, and one goal only: to find your wife, and to end her life. Kirishima Saichi is a writer with a failing career. His editor has just put an end to their collaboration, leaving Saichi lost and unable to continue his career. Within a flash, his life begins to spiral out of control. He's losing money, becoming indebted, becoming less close to his wife, Miki, and trying desperately to cling on to his writing career by any means necessary. One day, he gets a call back from his editor, after enough grueling days of endless writing. Things seem to be looking up for Saichi. As he's working on his piece, his wife comes in to let him know that she's going shopping, and that she needs to leave their son, Jun, under Saichi's watch. Unable to acknowledge her because he's listening to music, his wife leaves with the final message of, "Please bring in the laundry as well." Saichi continues to work on his craft, unknowingly ignoring his own child. Jun, overhearing his mother's request to bring in the laundry, decides to attempt to do it himself. Being a small boy, he cannot reach his parents' clothes, so he grabs a ladder, places it down, climbs up to the laundry, and plummets to his death, falling over the railing of the apartment, hitting the ground below. Saichi, having finished his work, finally leaves his office, walking into an abandoned living room, calling out to his wife and child, whom he doesn't yet know is deceased. Things take a turn when he glances over to the balcony, seeing a toppled chair and a small sandal laying on the ground. The funeral for Jun happens a few days later. During the funeral, many people attending are ostracizing and criticizing Saichi, murmuring to each other about how the poor boy would still be alive had his father not left him alone. We then see the aftermath of the funeral, Saichi hitting the ground after a heavy hit from his father-in-law, blaming him for the death of his grandson and proclaiming that a man who grew up without a family can never make anyone happy. Saichi, in tears, is begging for forgiveness, stating that he didn't know what had happened and that he thought Miki was watching over Jun. We then see Miki glaring down at him before saying, "This is your fault. You killed Jun." Some time passes. Saichi, in an effort to save his marriage, wants him and Miki to move on. He offers up the idea of trying again, starting anew and having another child. He tells her that he wants us to be a happy family again, that he wants a second chance. Miki lights up a cigarette and scoffs at Saichi, stating that only he is stuck in the past, and that she has already moved on. She adds fuel to the fire by saying that she never wanted children to begin with, and that Jun was nothing more than an accident. Miki tells Saichi that he needs to quit his whining and get back to work and work harder for her. Saichi has had enough mental torment and decides to go visit Miki's father after the next few of their arguments. He tells his father-in-law that he wants to file for a divorce. He tells Miki's father that he thinks it's the best for both of them to part ways despite Miki initially being apprehensive, and he hopes that Miki's father will help convince her that it could possibly be the right thing to do. However, Saichi is not met with support, rather judgment. Miki's father is disgusted with him, saying that he didn't think that Saichi could sink any lower. His father-in-law decides to give him an ultimatum. If Saichi really decides to divorce Miki, he will phone his lawyer, making Saichi pay him in compensation for leaving his daughter and letting his grandson die. Saichi decides to go home for the day. A day passes. Saichi goes back to his in-laws' house the following day, looking mentally disturbed, before proclaiming that he had the idea that instead of divorce, to go on a trip with Miki, to try and rekindle the love that they lost. Skeptical, Miki's father asks him why he had a change in heart. Saichi follows his father-in-law's question up with the claim that he truly did wish they had let him divorce Miki, saying that that was what he had hoped to do, before pulling a knife on Miki's parents, ending their lives brutally. Without skipping a beat, Psyche goes to the nearest payphone after the murders and calls up Miki, telling her that he's off work now and coming home. He's asking her if she's packed her things and is ready for their trip to have a fresh start. This is where the story really begins. We see Miki laying on the beach, a tropical paradise in her bikini, looking endlessly out into the distance, her gaze unwavering. A family is playing by the shore, laughing and enjoying themselves. Psyche looks on with a saddened gaze, knowing that there is no going back, that there is no happy ending for them, knowing that he will never have a family again. He walks over to Miki, asking if she's enjoying herself, asking if this little bit of change in their life is making her feel any better about their crumbling relationship, stating that the locals of the island believe that it brings happiness to all and any who come to admire it. Miki retorts back to him that this whole trip is nonsense and that he's a fool for believing that it will change anything. Sometime later, after packing up and leaving, the rain is pouring down. We see Psyche and Miki traveling through the dense rain and fog in their car. It appears as though Psyche, having no knowledge of the island, is lost, not knowing where to go. Miki begins to insult him relentlessly, calling him useless and saying that she should have never believed that he wanted to fix things with her. She believes that Psyche bringing her out here and explaining the local history of the island is all just inspiration for his next cheap novel. The island has a renowned history for being an island where a war broke out. Thousands of dead soldiers' bones all reside in the depths of the island. A perfect setting for his next novel. She says that everything is always Psyche's fault, before breaking his patience by telling him that it's because of him that their son is dead. Suddenly, their car comes to an abrupt stop. Psyche tells Miki that they're out of gas and that they need to walk the rest of the way to where they'll be staying. Unbeknownst to Miki, the car isn't out of gas. It has over a half tank full. They get out of the car before Psyche grabs a heavy wrench and cleaves Miki over the head with it. Blood gushing from her wound, he screams to her that she is the reason that June died, that none of this was his fault. They get into an altercation before she manages to escape, Psyche screaming after her that this island is filled with the bones of dead soldiers and that they will never find her body here. Psyche traverses through the thick mud, through the downpouring rain and thunder, screaming out, telling his wife he's not gonna stop until he finds her. That's when he follows her footsteps, leading to a dark, decrepit cave. Knowing that she's in there, that he can finally commit his atrocity without a second thought, he goes in. After traversing the cave for some time, he finds Miki. Tattered clothes, an injured leg, hair and face soaked with rain and her own tears. She's begging and pleading with him, saying that they can start over, that she's sure this time it'll all work out, that he can start a new life. He smashes her over the head with his wrench before yelling, "That's right, I can start a new life now." Her body stumbles to the ground. The deed is done. Psyche is freed from her grasp. He feels saddened yet relieved. As he's about to turn around and head out of the cave to start anew, he hears a small voice. An eerie voice murmuring. In shock and terror, he slowly turns around to this. It's a highly disfigured little boy, angrily telling Psyche that he's too mean to his mama. Psyche tells the little boy that Miki isn't his mother and that he doesn't know and hasn't seen the boy's mother. The boy fearfully runs away into the darkness. Psyche doesn't understand and thinks that because of all that has happened, he's hallucinating yet again. As he's finding his way out, he gets nearer and nearer to the exit, finally able to leave the dark cave. That's when he spots something in the darkness. A man's shoe. It can't have belonged to Miki. Does this mean that there's someone else in the cave? We then see Miki's body being dragged away out of sight of Psyche by the little boy who appeared earlier, showing that he is not a hallucination. Psyche is puzzled. Why would this be in here? He doesn't have a chance to think a second thought before a machete swings right by his ear, narrowly avoiding him. He's able to run away, confused, aggravated, and frightened. He has just come to terms that all of the events happening are real and not hallucinations. That's when his foot hits something hard and metallic, ringing and echoing into the depths of the cave. As he glances down with his flashlight, the metallic sheen reflects back to him. It's a hatch. Quickly and fearfully, he opens it. There's a ladder that leads to the depths below that are not yet known. Hastily, he decides to go down as the man with the machete is hot on his trail, swinging and thrashing around violently. He slips and falls to the depths below, knocking himself unconscious. He awakes to see he's in a corridor littered with skeletons and rotting corpses. It almost appears as though it's a jail cell. Confused, angry, and terrified, he proceeds down the corridor. In the darkness, he hears something. He approaches slowly and stealthily before seeing a person chained up in one of the cells. A young woman, roughly the same age as his wife. Tattered clothes and a look of pure sadness adorn her face. He glances on at her, confused before she opens her mouth and tells him what's happening is unfortunate, and that she is person number 8. Confused, he asks her what she's talking about and where he is. Before he can react, she says that 8 people will be killed and that he is the 9th. Just as she closes her mouth to finish speaking, a machete cleaves Psyche in the back, slashing him with a mortal wound and leaving him unable to move. He awakes in a pitch-black room, somehow still alive. He has no idea how long he's been tied to the chair in the pitch-black cellar. It could be days, it could be weeks, maybe even months. The darkness and isolation had robbed him of all of his sense of time. The only thing keeping him grounded was the ghastly screams of the people being killed around him. After what seemed like forever, the screams finally stopped one day. He was the final one. All this time allowed him to contemplate the reasons for his life, the reasons why he was allowed to live so long in this dark maze of terror. The answer was obvious, one he didn't want to admit until it was his final hours. He was going to be a meal for the man wielding the machete. The final hours drew near. Psyche is screaming, begging, pleading to live. He doesn't want to die. This was his chance to start over. After several minutes of delirious rambling and crying from Psyche, the door creaks open. A hand holding a bloody wrench pulls the handle. Standing in the doorway, battered and bruised, but somehow still alive, Miki glares at him, with newfound stitches holding her head together. She taunts him, asking it how it feels to be in her shoes, how it feels to be the one pleading for their life before smashing the wrench across Psyche's face. More taunting ensues before Miki finally pulls back the bloody wrench. She tells Psyche not to worry, that she's not the one that will end up ending his life. She reveals that the disfigured machete man has a soft spot for women and addressed her wounds, that he will be the one ending Psyche's life. She tells Psyche that she is willing to do anything to leave this cave alive. She plans to escape and get freedom by attempting to procreate with the machete man and the promises of her safe departure from the cave. She tells Psyche that she's going to start anew as a widow and tell everyone he died in an accident on their trip, proclaiming that the person who is going to start over again was never meant to be him, that it was meant to be her. Some hours pass before the door slowly creaks open. Psyche fully believes at this point that he is going to die now. However, when the door opens, we are met with another familiar face. A disfigured and disturbing one. The little boy from earlier. Psyche remembers the face all too well. It's the face that got him trapped in here in the first place. Before Psyche can relieve his grievances towards the boy exclaims that Psyche smells. Psyche smells like his mama. Psyche onlooks the boy for a moment before piecing the two halves together. The boy obviously isn't Miki's. It hasn't been that long. The boy is the woman's, the woman from the cell from earlier. Psyche looks at the boy and asks him if he would like to see his mother again. That all it'll take for the boy to see his mother is him untying Psyche. The boy unties him and leads the way out of Psyche's cell. Along the way, there are various articles of clothing that have been stripped from the Machete Man's various victims. Psyche is able to find some clothes to cover himself before finding another machete, in good shape underneath some of the clothes. Now armed and ready to find his way out, he asks the boy why his father won't let him see his mother. The boy tells Psyche that his father told him that the woman will run away because she knows how to escape and that he will be left without a mother. Psyche's eyes light up. The woman knows how to get out of the cave. Without a second thought, he tells the boy that he will bring him to his mama, but first, he asks the boy to bring him to his father, stating that the boy will get in trouble if his father finds out he went to see his mother, and that Psyche has a solution for that. We then see Miki laying on a bed below the Machete Man, seducing him, telling him that she won't run like the others, that she wants to bear his child, before a machete slides through his chest, spilling blood all over her. Psyche rips the machete out and looks down at Miki, before telling her that she was right about the cave, that she was right about the awful past they shared, and that he wants to bury it all together. He slams her into a wall and tells her he's going to end everything, before the Machete Man grabs his arm, somehow still alive. Distracting his gaze from Miki, he slashes the Machete Man once more, before pursuing after her. After he turns around to assess the possible exit ways, he sees that yet again the Machete Man is gone. The little boy then tugs at his arm. In a delirious state, Psyche looks down and envisions the boy as June himself, before holding his hand and running with him after Miki. Miki is almost at the exit now, crawling away painfully. She can see the light, she can see the entrance, she's almost there. Miki is dead. A bayonet piercing through the back of her head. The Machete Man had a soft spot for her until she decided to try and escape, not withholding her end of his bargain. We pan back to the little boy and Psyche hand in hand. They finally found the hatch down to the cellar to his mother. Psyche is relieved and begins to open it, telling the boy to follow. That's when a scream echoes into the darkness. It gets louder and louder as the Machete Man plunges on Psyche from above. Psyche is able to defend himself for long enough to yell to the boy, "Go, see your mother." He follows it up with, "Don't worry, June. Daddy will be right behind you." At this point, Psyche has completely mentally degraded, fully believing the boy is his dead son. A fight ensues before Psyche finally delivers the fatal blow. He found an incendiary grenade from the war deep down here when he was rummaging through the clothes and corpses. It ignites, blasting the Machete Man, igniting him until his death. The boy has found his mother, and Psyche has now opened the door to greet them. He tells them it's okay and that the monster is now dead. He lets the woman free from her chains and tells her that he would do anything for his dear wife and son. He asks the woman if she's happy now that she gets to see her son. The woman, seemingly knowing that Psyche has lost his mind, tells him that she is relieved to see him, despite being appalled by what the boy looks like. Psyche cheerily says that of course she's happy, that mother and child belong together. As he walks with the woman and child out of the cell, the woman exclaims that she cannot believe that it's over, that she can finally get out of here. Stunned, Psyche stops and turns around, asking her why she would ever want to go outside, saying that there's nothing out there, that everything that they would ever need is in this cave. Psyche now knows exactly how the Machete Man felt. His mental health has declined so rapidly that he too doesn't want to have the woman leave. The woman crumbles to her knees, realizing that she cannot escape. She tearfully tells Psyche that in the end he's insane, that he is exactly like the Machete Man. Psyche is furious and asks her why she would say such a thing. He asks her why does everyone turn away from him, before we're greeted with this panel. I think you can guess what happens next. It's now 2010. 21 years later, we see a new couple residing on the island. They're heading to the resort in the island when their car's battery shuts off, the wife lamenting the husband for renting a cheap car. They decide to set off on foot and find the home where they will be staying, discussing the strange disappearance of a family that happened visiting this specific mountain on the island. That's when it gets dark. Walking into the unknown, they find an abandoned vehicle. Thinking help is nearby, they trudge on forward through the night before finding a cave. They find a book at the entrance, documenting a man finding this cave, questioning how long it's been. They flip through the pages, revealing that the author is none other than Psyche himself, telling them that he has been here by himself for so long, that he is lonely, that he wants to meet them and welcome them, that they, the reader of this book, have found his cave, that he needs help, that he doesn't want to be alone again, that he is Saichi Karashima, and they are his family.